So whenever you've committed to yourself, you started doing all the work, you're listening to all the podcasts, you're doing all the journaling, you're starting to meditate, you're doing all that work, there are still things that can come up, usually involving our environment and where we place ourselves and the situations that we get ourselves in. That's where some things can hold us back. And here are 4 changes that you can make now to fast forward that progress. The first change you can make, and I think one of the most important ones, is to stop devoting all your time, your money, your energy into who I like to refer to as the takers in life. Some people are givers, some people are takers. It doesn't mean that takers don't also give sometimes and givers don't also take sometimes. What it means is there's an overarching theme for these folks. And the takers in life are usually people very close to us, or friends, family, partners even. People who never seem to give back any percentage of, or very much of what they take from you. It's often people you really feel bad for, who they tug on your heartstrings, and it can really pull you away from the things that are really the most important to you in life. All relationships have some giving and some taking, some ebb and flow, right? That's not what this is about. I think we all know deep down who the people in our lives are that are never really there when we need something, but always need something from us, and people who are just a drain on us for whatever reason, whether it's kind of physically, emotionally, spiritually even, energetically. Some people just are a drain on us. And if that is taking away from your ability to kind of make progress in some of the things that you're trying to do, or it's kind of distracting you from that, you need to consider where you're spending your time and energy, because those are your 2 biggest commodities. And I want to be clear, this doesn't mean that you need to just go cut all these people out of your life. That's not necessarily what I mean. And I think that sometimes that certainly can be necessary, especially when it's kind of a more serious situation. But it doesn't mean that that's what you need to be doing. What I do think it means, though, is that you need to create some boundaries with people, and you don't even have to tell them about these boundaries. They can just be boundaries that you place with yourself, that you're not going to always pick up the phone when that person calls, because if you don't have the time or the energy to deal with what you probably know is coming when you pick up that phone call, just don't do it every time. Just let it go to voicemail, shoot a text back, something, Limit yourself in that way. Set the boundary with yourself. Maybe that means not spending as much time with that person, or not being one-on-one with that person if that seems to be the problem. So boundaries can be directly stated to another person, but they can also be boundaries that we set for ourselves. And I think that's important in navigating some of those more difficult and complex relationships that we all have. Second change to make: don't allow others' opinions of you or their projections onto you influence you. And I always tell people this when I begin working with them, that be careful when you begin to really devote time and energy to yourself and self-improvement. It tends to trigger some people around you. And what I mean by that is you may not get the support for the changes that you're making in your life from the people that you would like to think have your best interests in mind. A lot of times that looks like the parent that doesn't understand why you want to change your career, and they think you should just be doing what they want you to be doing. Or somebody just in general kind of doesn't really believe that you have the gusto, the know-how, whatever, to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. These people tend to come out of the woodworks when we start placing emphasis on ourselves and doing better for ourselves. And oftentimes it's because they have not dared to take those chances in their life, and they project their fears and their insecurities about making it or being able to do something onto you. So you need to kind of learn to tune those things out, even if it means you don't talk about certain topics with those people. I think the best way to address it is to not take any of those types of comments to heart. And also just keep showing up as you. Just keep showing up as this improving version of yourself. And a lot of times people will actually eventually see you kind of living in that truth, and they realize like, oh, well, gee, maybe there was something to that. Maybe there's a reason he or she kind of made all those changes in their life. And look, it's actually starting to pay off. Sometimes people come around, you'd be surprised. But just know that there are going to be times when you kind of choose to commit to yourself that it doesn't feel great coming from other people and the feedback that you get. So just be prepared for it, and you just got to learn to be Teflon. You just got to let it bounce off of you and have confidence in yourself and your knowing, because you know what's best for you. The third change to make is to name your needs and set boundaries rather than just always keeping the peace. I always say there's a difference between keeping unnecessary conflict out of your life and keeping the peace. Those are two different things. One is actually not good, and it's the keeping the peace thing. Keeping the peace is avoiding conflict to the point where it's taken too far, and you've actually placed yourself outside of your comfort and your needs, and they just don't ever get met when you operate in this manner. It's hard to speak up, especially if you weren't really raised in a household where that was an easy thing for you without repercussion. So it's something that some of us have to kind of heal through and get past. But speaking up, and look, all of your relationships should be ones where you can communicate openly and ask for what you need and feel loved and respected and heard. And if you're not feeling that in your relationships, whatever, if it's a work relationship, if it's a love relationship, if it's a friendship, if it's a family relationship, it doesn't matter. You should feel the right things in those relationships, and you should be able to communicate openly. So if you need to draw boundaries and take hard lines with people or ask for what you need, and if that, isn't being met, you maybe need to make decisions about those relationships. But it is important to stand in your power and remember the things that are important to you, and not constantly place yourself in discomfort to make everybody else comfortable. That's not your obligation in life, and it's important to remember that. It's important to not put off those difficult conversations as well in relationships, especially when we fear that the answer might not be one that we like. The worst thing that happens in that situation is you put yourself in a place of waiting for an inevitable answer that might be a deal breaker for the relationship or for the friendship, whatever it is. It's important to have those conversations that are difficult, because if you don't, you've only put off a conversation that was going to have to happen at some point anyways. I promise you, as painful as the answers sometimes are to the questions we need to find out, as painful as those answers are, nothing's more painful than waiting a long time only to get that answer and say, gee golly gosh, I wish I had asked that question a little sooner. So just keep that in mind. And fourth change, most important one, don't forget to have fun. Life is not meant to be only working and sleeping and going to the grocery store and all of those regular everyday things. We were meant to grow and change and explore. We're meant to love, we're meant to learn, and maybe even teach. I think if you can find a way to incorporate some version of giving back into your life, whether it's part of your career or just a personal project, whatever it is, that's how we build a community and a society that is reflective of the values that most of us have, instead of the one that sometimes we find ourselves living with. Balance isn't something that just naturally occurs. It's something that we actually have to make time for. We have to just keep trying and keep trying to fit balance in. And it's never easy. It's certainly not easy for me and for many of the most successful people I know, but it is necessary. So keep working on yourself. Keep your focus. Don't let these external things distract you, and keep at these 4 points, and I know it'll help keep you more focused. Remember, growth is not an overnight thing. It's a little bit everyday thing. So keep at it and stay focused. I know you'll keep improving.